through the wilderness on toward the promised land. In spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would move on by Greece and take my mind to Mount Olympus. I would see Plato and Aristotle, Socrates, Euripides, and Aristophanes assembled around the Parthenon as they discussed the great and eternal issues of reality. But I wouldn't stop there. I would go on even into the great heyday of the Roman Empire. I would see developments around there through various emperors and leaders, but I wouldn't stop there. I would come up upon the day of the Renaissance and get a quick picture of all that the Renaissance did for the cultural and aesthetic life of man, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even go by the way that the man for whom I'm named had his habitat. I would watch Martin Luther as he tacked his 95 pieces on the door of the church in Wittenberg. But I wouldn't stop there. I would come on even to 1863 and watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. But I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the early 30s and see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of his nation. Come with an eloquent cry that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I'll be happy. Now that's a strange statement to make because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick, trouble is in the land, confusion is all around. That's a strange statement, but I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men in some strange way are responding. I say to you again that something is happening in our world. Masses of people are rising up. Wherever they are assembled today, whether they're in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same. We just want to be free. That is where we are today. Another reason I'm happy to live in this period is that we have been forced to a point. We're going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with throughout history, but the demands didn't force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple with them. Men for years have been talking about war and peace, but now no longer can they just talk about it. It is no longer a choice between violence and nonviolence in this world. It's nonviolence or non-existence. Also in this human rights revolution, if something isn't done and in a hurry to bring the colored people of the world out of their long years of poverty, their long years of hurt and neglect, the whole world is doomed. Now I'm just happy that God has allowed me to live in this period to see what is unfolding. And I'm happy that he's allowed me to be in Memphis tonight. I can remember when Negroes were just going around, as Ralph has said, so often scratching where they didn't itch and laughing where they were not tickled. But that day is all over. We mean business now, and we are determined to go gain our rightful place in God's world. Yeah. That's what this whole thing is about. We aren't engaged in any negative protests and in any negative arguments with anybody. We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We are saying that we are God's children and that we don't have to live like we are forced to live. What does all this mean to this great period of history? It means that we've got to stay together. We've got to stay together and maintain unity. You know, whenever Pharaoh wanted to prolong the period of slavery in Egypt, he had a favorite formula for doing it. What was that, you ask? He kept the slaves fighting among themselves. Whenever the slaves get together, something happens in Pharaoh's court. He cannot hold the slaves in slavery. When the slaves get together, that's the beginning of getting out of slavery. So let us maintain unity. As we leave here tonight, let us develop a kind of dangerous unselfishness. One day a man came to Jesus. He wanted to raise some questions about some vital matters in life. points he wanted to trick Jesus and show him that he knew a little more than Jesus knew, and through this throw him off base. Now that question could have easily ended up in a philosophical and theological debate, but Jesus immediately pulled that question from midair, placed it on a dangerous curve between Jerusalem and Jericho. He talked about a certain man who fell among thieves. You remember that a Levite and a priest passed by on the other side. They didn't stop to help him, and finally a man of another race came by, got down from his beast, decided not to be passionate by proxy, but got down from his beast, decided that he needed to administer first aid and help the man in need. Jesus ended up saying this was a good man, this was the great man, because he had the capacity to project the eye into the thou and to be concerned about his brother. You know, we need to use our imagination a great deal to try to determine why the priest and the Levite didn't stop. Times we say they were busy going to church meetings, in ecclesiastical gathering, and they had to get on down to Jerusalem so they wouldn't be late for their meeting. At other times we would speculate that there was a religious law that one who was engaged in religious ceremonies was not to touch a human body 24 hours before the ceremony. Every now and then we began to wonder whether they maybe were not going down to Jerusalem or down to Jericho, but rather to organize a Jericho Road Improvement Association. That's a possibility. Maybe they felt that it was better to deal with the problem from the casual route rather than to get bogged down with an individual effort. I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me. It's possible that these men were afraid. You see, Jericho is a dangerous road. I remember when Mrs. King and I were first in Jerusalem, we rented a car, drove from Jerusalem down to Jericho. As soon as we got on that road, I said to my wife, I can see why Jesus used this setting for his parable. You see, it's a winding, meandering road. It's really conducive for ambushing. Start out in Jerusalem, which is about 1,200 miles, or rather 1,200 feet above sea level. By the time you get down to Jericho, 15 or 20 minutes later, you're about 2,200 feet below sea level. That's a dangerous road. The days of Jesus, it came to be known as the bloody path. You know, it's possible that the priest and the Levite, he looked over that man on the ground and wondered if the robbers were still around. It's possible that they felt that the man on the ground was merely faking. He was acting like he had been robbed and hurt in order to seize them over there and lure them there for quick and easy seizure. So the first question that the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? Then the Good Samaritan came by and he reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? That's the question I leave with you tonight. Not if I stop to help the sanitation workers, but what will happen to all of the hours that I usually spend in my office every day and every week as a pastor? Question is not if I stop to help this man in need. What will happen to me if I do not stop to help the sanitation workers? What will happen to them? That is the question. Well, you know, several years ago, I was in New York City autographing the first book that I had written. While sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" I was looking down writing and I said, "Yes." The next minute I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. That blade had gone through and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, main artery, and once that's punctured, you drown in your own blood. That's the end of you. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me after the operation. My chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out to move around in the New York State Hospital. And I looked at that letter. I'll never forget. She said simply, "Dr. King, I'm a ninth grade student at the White Plains High School. She said, while it should not matter, I would like to mention that I am a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing you to say that I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960. The students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream. Taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around in 1962. Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. Whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it's bent over. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1963. The black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation, brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year, August, to try to tell America about a dream that I had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma, Alabama, to see the great movement there. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Memphis, see a community rallying around those brothers and sisters who are suffering. So I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze. They were telling me, now it doesn't matter now. It really doesn't matter what happens now. I left Atlanta this morning, and as we got started on the plane, there were 6 of us. Pilot said over the public address system, we're sorry for the delay. We have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane. To be sure that all of the bags were checked and to be sure that nothing could go wrong with the plane. We had to check out everything carefully. We've had the plane protected and guarded all night. Then I got into Memphis. Some began to say the threats or talks about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. He's allowed me to go up to the mountaintop. I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Thank you and God bless you.